Since 2022, we've been talking about the market correcting, but at what point is it actually considered a market crash? In this video, I'm going to show you 5 communities in Durham Region that have seen the biggest price drops since the peak of the market, and I'll give you some context as to why they're in the top 5 as well. If you enjoyed this video, all I ask is that you hit the like button and let me know if you'd like to see the areas that have seen prices drop the least. A quick note before we get into the list, I've seen charts going around that show communities around the GTA with the largest price drops, but honestly, they can be pretty misleading because they're including areas with very few sales, or areas that had sales that were out of the norm for the area and heavily skewed the averages up or down. The data I'm using for this video is based on sales in Durham Region during the first quarter of 2022 compared to the first quarter of 2025. Using a larger sample size gives us a clearer picture of what's really happening. Full transparency, I removed 3 communities from this list. I excluded rural Whitby and rural Pickering because they cover massive areas with farms, acreage, and unique properties that don't compare well like a more standard neighborhood. I also removed Dunbarton and Pickering. On paper, Dunbarton has the biggest price drop, but when I dug into the sales, there are only 3 sales in Q1 of 2025, and one of them was actually a townhome from outside of that area that was mislabeled and brought the average price down by $300,000. Starting with number 5 is Centennial in Oshawa. Centennial had 61 sales in the first quarter of 2022 at an average price of $957,000. In the first quarter of 2025, there were only 38 sales at an average price of $660,000. That's a loss of nearly 31% or nearly $300,000. The highest sale in Q1 of 2022 was $1.86 million, and in the first quarter of 2025, the highest sale was just $910,000. Now, to be clear, those were 2 very different homes. The sale in 2022 was of a Century home on Simcoe Street, and those are sought after. They don't come up for sale often, and when they do, they sell at a premium. It would obviously be a lot less than $1.8 million in today's market, but a premium nonetheless. Centennial is a community that stands out on this list because it's not all high-end or overly large homes, as you'll see when we go through the other areas in the video. This is a fairly normal community in Oshawa with lots of older bungalows and split-level homes. You do have a couple areas that can command a premium, like the homes around Sunset Heights and the Century homes like I mentioned on Simcoe and some of the streets east of Simcoe. But this community also includes Nonquan Road, and if you're familiar with Oshawa or have seen my areas to avoid video, Nonquan Road is generally an area that if the budget allows, I would recommend people avoid, as it can be a little bit rougher around the edges, and in a slower market, the homes can be harder to resell for the same reason. Outside of that little pocket, Centennial is a really good community with charming older neighborhoods, homes with surprisingly large lots, and it's a very convenient location for most people. Number 4 on the list is Northwest Ajax. In the first quarter of 2022, Northwest Ajax had 49 sales at an average price of $1,497,000. During the first quarter of 2025, that same area had 30 sales at an average sale price of $1,028,000. A price difference of 31.3% or nearly $470,000 in 3 years. This is a pretty popular area of Ajax that has a mix of detached and townhomes. The detached can vary in size from fairly normal sized homes under 2,000 square feet to large family homes that are well over 3,500 square feet. I actually went through some of the sales from 2022 and 2025 because I was curious if there were any sales from either year that may be skewing the data a little bit, but that didn't seem to be the case. And I did find a home that sold for $1.5 million in 2022 that just recently sold again in July for $1.2 million. So that's a real $300,000 loss that someone unfortunately had to take. In 2022, the highest sale for that community was $2,350,000. While it was a very large, beautiful home, $2.35 million can get you some serious luxury homes pretty much anywhere in Durham Region. Earlier this year, there was a very similar home that was actually on a slightly larger lot, and it sold for $1.648. So that home is probably worth about $700,000 less in just 3 years. It's unfortunate, especially for those who have had to sell and take a loss, but I think those homes are great examples of how this isn't only affecting homes in rough or undesirable areas. It's heavily impacting homes in great areas and higher end areas as well. Area number 3 is Lynde Creek in Whitby. This community had 43 sales in the first quarter of 2022 at an average sale price of $1,311,000. During the first quarter of this year, there were only 21 sales, and the average price was down to $861,000, which is a price drop of 34.3%, or roughly $450,000. The highest sale during Q1 of 2022 was $2,225,000. And funnily enough, that home is actually listed for sale right now at an even higher price. I'm not sure if they'll get it or not, but I'll leave that one alone and let you provide your opinion in the comments. The highest sale during Q1 of 2025 was only $1,285,000 for this area. Lynde Creek has a good mixture of neighborhoods, from ones with older bungalows, old and new townhomes, and some larger detached homes. Overall, it's a fairly good area of Durham Region that has taken some hard hits, with even the entry-level properties seeing 30% price declines since the peak. Area number 2 is Taunton in Oshawa. During the first quarter of 2022, there were 68 sales at an average price of $1,501,000. Fast forward to Q1 of this year, and there were 38 sales at an average price of $978,000, a price decline of 34.8%, or over $500,000. This is an area I should provide a little bit of context for, though, because there are some townhomes built there in the last few years that were not available on MLS in Q1 of 2022. So those are newer but relatively lower cost homes that are new to the area and could shift the data a little bit. But regardless, the losses are still quite high. The highest sale in Q1 of 2022 was $2,100,000, and the highest for Q1 of 2025 was just $1,505,000. Those were sales of 4+ bedroom homes over 3,500 square feet. So pretty much the largest homes that you can get in that area. For a nice but relatively normal subdivision in North Oshawa, that's still a ton of money. All right, the last one. The neighborhood with the biggest price drop is... You'll have to subscribe to find out. Done? Okay, so the actual hardest hit area from 2022's peak is Winfields in Oshawa. Winfields had 86 sales in Q1 of 2022 at an average sale price of $1,224,000. In Q1 of 2025, there were 59 sales at an average price of $798,000. Again, to be transparent, this is another area that has seen a ton of growth in recent years, especially with some more affordable properties like townhomes and condo apartments. So those sales can pull the average down a bit. But that doesn't mean that this area hasn't seen some dramatic price drops. The highest sale I found in Q1 of 2022 was $1.9 million, and in Q1 of 2025, it was just $1.23 million. But while I was looking through the sales, I found a home that sold in early 2022 for $1.8 million, and that home just resold this year for $1.17 million, a loss of over $600,000. It's sad to see people take huge financial losses, especially those who were end-user families that received poor advice or genuinely thought that they were doing the right thing. But this area being high on the list does not surprise me. During the rush of 2021 and 2022, everyone wanted to be an investor because why not? Home values were going bananas, and what better place to invest than in a fairly new, quickly growing community that's located right down the street from Durham College. You can rent out the basement, rent out the main level, or even rent out multiple rooms to students. And while those things are true, and it is a quickly growing area with new amenities, a Costco, and so on, there are homes in this area that can be less desirable when the market shifts in favor of buyers. 3-story townhomes with no backyards, condo apartments with small or awkward layouts, and even some of the large detached homes that are butt right up against each other on very small lots. While they can be good homes for certain people, they aren't for everyone. And these changes in the market over the last 3 years have forced many investors to sell, and it's completely slowed down demand from new investors. One thing that most of these areas on the list had in common was that they had a lot of large, higher-end detached homes and luxury properties. The homes that people will splurge on when money's flowing and borrowing is cheap, but when things flip, they're often homes that can take the largest losses. There are two things I've always tried to preach to people that I help buy homes and to those of you watching my videos. The first is to buy in a good area. Obviously, it needs to fit your needs and check your boxes. As for most people, it's still their home. But buying a good home in a good neighborhood is step one to making a smart purchase. And step two is having at least a 5-year plan in mind. Because as much as buying a good home in a good area can give you a better experience while you live there and make resale easier down the road, it's not foolproof when the market changes, as we just saw from the areas in this video. So buying with at least a 5-year plan and knowing that unless something unpredictable happens, you will be able to afford this property and it will be functional for you and your family for the next 5 years gives you a little bit of a safety buffer if values drop for a period of time or if rates were to increase. Now, to be honest, for those who paid at the very top end of prices during the peak of the market, it's probably going to take more than 5 years to recover those values. But for those who purchased just prior to the run-up in prices or those who've purchased more recently since prices have started to come back down, a 5-year window gives you time to ride it out if there's a dip in prices and not being forced to sell. And with all of that in mind, I think it's time we acknowledge that from 2022 to 2025 is a bit more than a market correction. Let me know your thoughts below. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video and want to stay informed on our real estate market. Thank you so much for watching until the end, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.